A local restaurant will be in the house talking about how they're doing. There's a special session right now. We'll talk about that and the government shutdown with John Cuvion. But Gordy Rush will begin the show talking about an episode of Mama's Family masquerading as the LSU football program. Roll it, Kirk. Not a whole lot going on campus right now, right, with the LSU football program. Gordy, nothing to talk about at all, right?
Nothing.
So a longer episode of the C-Suite will feature a conversation with Gordy and I talking about what's happening at LSU. You can check that out on Monday. But for the purposes of this show, what's happening?
Wow. It's been a whirlwind. You know, I mean, it seems like yesterday LSU beat Clemson. We're shoe-in for the college football playoff. And stub our toe and really have a bad offensive performance at Ole Miss in the first half and lose a game where I thought LSU was a better roster. And then you have the hope of going into Vanderbilt, of all places, to hold serve and win that game to set up a monumental matchup here at home against Texas A&M. You always feel good about, you know, Brian Kelly, I think, was 21-1 in Tiger Stadium at night. And wow, this thing snowballed. And then I think to narrow it down for LSU to be leading at halftime 18-14, doing everything they needed to do offensively. They were matching Texas A&M's physicality, and the third quarter happened. And then Sunday happened. And then all of this has happened, and then we had a press conference at the state capitol. We are.
Yeah.
So you have questions?
So on that Sunday, when you got the call that, hey, this might happen today and it's probably going to be the head coach, what was your reaction to that?
Wow, really surprising, knowing what the buyout is. And, you know, knowing what the buyout is, 54 million, knowing that you're now in a revenue share model in which you're paying out $18 million a year to student athletes, and you're having to go find alternative ways of raising that money through different streams or through boosters or however that might be in a world of NIL and rev share. You're talking about a lot of money, and then, you know, you're talking about whatever the money is to bring in another staff. I mean, you talk about $100 million transition, and I think we all know, you know, where we are in this state and where the economy is. That's a tough find.
How did it unravel so quickly?
Right.
That's the thing. You have a 5-3 football team, but the last month has been trending in this direction. How did we get here?
Well, I think the two things that jump out, and I can't speak for Scott Woodward, but offensively, just inability to, I think, to be balanced and not run the football, one-dimensional. You know, unfortunately, Garrett Nussmeier is not at 100%, and then I think it wore the defense down a little bit. And then I think that second half against Texas A&M, while I was still digesting it, sounds like enough people with bigger stroke than me, which is minimal, which is my stroke, but you know, a lot of people just didn't like the fact that Texas A&M came in, bullied us in the second half, took over Tiger Stadium.
Yeah, that was crazy.
And, you know, it was a Board of Supervisors game. The optics were what it is, and you know, and then again, you're asking for people to put up a lot of money for NIL. If I'm putting up $1 million, $2 million, which I'm not, by the way.
Are you sure?
I'm not.
I heard you were.
I'm not.
I heard you were the donor that covered
I'm not
the biggest
donor.
chunk of
Let me.
That's what I heard.
Let me knock that out.
That's the
right
word
now.
on the streets.
Might have been Matt Moscona,
Streets
but it
don't
wasn't
lie.
me. But
it could have been Matt Moscona.
You know, when those people give money like that, they're going to want a voice.
So there's so many moving parts. The discussion was, and you probably can't confirm some of this internal stuff, but there was a meeting between he and Scott Woodward, and it was about his staff, and that the AD wanted him to make some changes on his staff, and Kelly said, I'm not doing it. And then it escalated into, well, you know, maybe we'll make a change at the top.
They couldn't agree on things, and obviously, you know, from the reports, something went sideways in that. And then the move was on Kelly, and then, you know, from what I understand, there was a meeting at the governor's mansion without Woodward, with the board members and with some donors, and
I hope y'all caught what he said.
And here we are,
Woodward.
And so, you know, all of it, right? And so it's happened so quickly, and even for this stuff to be out and be public knowledge, usually
Yeah.
a lot of these things are done behind closed doors, and it's really not for print or broadcast.
Well, look, Alyssa, we're going to get out of this one early because I want to come back and talk with Gordy about the top candidates that he thinks should be on the list for the job. Look, how's the interim coach going to be able to get his team focused again? Because you still got to play Alabama in less than 2 weeks. And so we'll get his thoughts on that. Gordy Rush sticking with us one more segment. And here's contact information if you're looking to get on the show. Even though LSU fired their coach, there's still a lot of football to be played. The Alabama game is on deck right now, and Coach Frank Wilson has got to be able to get his team together to play this game. How does he move his players away from the distractions and focus on the Crimson Tide?
There's no better person than Frank Wilson to do this. He's the right guy at the right time. Love Frank. He's a Louisiana guy, and he has a great relationship with the players. There's no doubt in my mind that they're going to play. Tweaks offensively. I think we talked about that. You got to be able to run the football. I know he's come out and said we will run the football. And again, going back to what I've said all along, there's no great teams, there are no bad teams. Alabama was on the ropes against South Carolina, a team that LSU beat. It is possible for LSU to run the table. And
Wouldn't that be something?
Don't think that. You got to go to Alabama, you got to go to Oklahoma. What happens if they go 3-1 or something like that, and it's an 8-4 season? So there's a lot to play for, and I promise you, Frank Wilson's thinking he's going to run the table, and he wants his name in the hat.
That's so crazy. So what happens?
That's Frank Wilson.
What happens if he does it?
Well, we'll see.
And then at the end, now you gotta consider that, don't you?
Well, you go 9-3, then we'll come to that and who's making the decision. But obviously Frank's going to do everything he can to make a name for a case for himself.
And wouldn't it be consistent with this year if he ran the table, got you into a bowl game, performed well in a bowl game, and then you're going to go and tell this guy, hey, we're going to pick somebody else?
Oh
man, you just gave me a wrinkle. I didn't think about this. This is going to get good.
Let me tell you.
I don't know if you want to root for him, right?
Let me tell you, Oklahoma's quarterback has been battered, and I don't know what they're going to look like. If he's not eligible, that becomes a winnable game. Alabama's the toughest game on the schedule. No, Arkansas's not easy. They're very good offensively. Bobby Petrino can call plays. You'll beat Western Kentucky, so there's a lot of football to be played. LSU has an elite roster, right? They've underperformed this year. Can Frank get them to perform?
Ooh, that would be just entertaining. All right, so outside of Coach Wilson, who else would be on the Gordy Rush list of candidates?
Well, I think Lane Kiffin, is first and foremost, right? And so is Lane interested in coming down here with the resources of recruiting and what have you? Again, we're in a different age that Ole Miss has the same rev share number that LSU does, and they have alignment. So is this something that he's interested in doing? And the great drama with that is, if he takes this job, would he bring his good buddy Ed Ogeron to be the associate head coach?
Who's actively campaigning for this job?
Oh, right no. O's finally, I think, the payout's going, the payout's ending here. And so he's got the itch. He wants to get back to work. He's in play at Oregon State for the head coaching job up in Corvallis. Yeah. No, so he knows if I'm Oregon State, who's going to recruit the West Coast better than Ed Ogeron? That's a no-brainer now that I'm kicked out of the Pac-12, but so much for that. Look, I think Lane Kiffin, names that intrigue me, I think that fit the DNA. John Summerall is the head coach at Tulane. Defense guy, physicality, you would talk about fit, understands the culture. I think is a star in the making down there. Eli Drinkowitz is a guy that is right now on the board as a #1 candidate at Florida, but he's from Missouri, an offensive guy that has really had a good success rise. I think it's young that kind of gets that space. I like Brett Key, who's a no-nonsense physical guy, what he's done over at Georgia Tech. I think those are kind of the names that you would start with. I think it's a younger man's game now. And it's about the relationships. Everybody mentions Joe Brady. Joe Brady left LSU after a year because he did not like recruiting. I think Joe Brady is more probable to be an NFL coach than a college coach. I love Kelvin Shepherd. My only argument with Shep is, do you pay off a guy $54 million to bring in somebody that's been a first-time head coach, right? And so, how much does Shep know about the college game? He was here under a GA. Love Kelvin Shepherd, though. He's doing a great job at Detroit.
the great Gordy Rush, and we managed to get into and out of both segments without any discussion of the NFL, because this man is, I mean to tell you, a jinx.
Yes, go Niners. Go
Just
Niners.
don't. Up next, we will talk with John Kuvion about the redistricting session and the government shutdown. We're going to get Gordy out of the building so that we can all get back to normal. Here's where you can catch the show. It streams on Plus. It streams on AFB. It's on YouTube. Well, we've thoroughly fumigated the place now that we've gotten Gordy Rush out of here. And here is a breath of fresh air right here. John Kuvion with JMC Analytics and Polling, talking about a couple of things. One, the redistricting session that's going on. That everything in Louisiana has been overshadowed by the head coach termination, but also the government shutdown that seems to be turning some ugly corners here in the recent days. Let's start with the special session and where this is. Obviously, because of the population shift and based upon prescriptions set by the Voting Rights Act, you have to adjust the representation in Congress. Louisiana drew a congressional district to create a majority-minority district that U.S. Representative Fields now maintains, and we're getting ready to determine what that district will look like going forward and what parts of Louisiana will be included. Fair analysis of how we've gone so far?
There's two parts of the equation here. The first is what the stated purpose of the session was, which was to move back the party primary dates a month. In other words, what would have been January qualifying, April primary, and May runoff is now February qualifying, May primary, and June runoff. So everything's just been pushed back a month. That's the stated part of the session. The unstated part, which is, I guess you could say, the worst kept secret in Louisiana, as our state waits to see what, if anything, the Supreme Court is going to say about the Kale case, the assumption is that there are going to be changes made, and if we follow along that assumption, that means there would be possibly some redrawing of our congressional districts. So it's kind of one of those things where even though the stated purpose was only moving the primary dates,
between the lines, though. I don't even play with the. It's not a farce, because that is work that has to happen, but we understood that this thing was coming. We've known since the beginning of the year, you and I talked about it, that this was what we likely would be facing at the end of the year.
And you see, the other problem, too, this is kind of slightly delving into legalese, but it's more of getting into the real politic aspect. So the Supreme Court punted this case from last session into this session. The big unknown is if the Supreme Court's going to make a decision, let's say hypothetically tomorrow or December or the very last date of the next session, which will be in June. The assumption I think the legislators are going off of, because Texas has a qualifying deadline, I think it's December 9th, and this one Kale case has the potential to affect easily most of the Deep South. The thought is that perhaps the Texas case is like an unofficial deadline as to when the Supreme Court needs to make a decision. So that's why the legislature moved everything back a month.
What do you think about the specter of what happened in Texas? Because they too had this issue, and state legislators were fleeing the state so as not to be there for this. I don't think we're going to have that here in Louisiana, but how does something like that impact what we do here, because politics have become so tribal nationally? So
a couple things are going on. First is that using the R word, redistricting, things have gotten very nasty, as you appreciate. But you know, the irony, speaking specifically to the Texas case, what actually happened is that there were some districts that had black pluralities but not black majorities. And so what they did was they basically made black majority districts in Houston and Dallas and created additional Hispanic seats. But nevertheless, all of that, as well as cases across the Deep South, are sitting in anticipation for what the Supreme Court's going to decide with regards to Section 2, because the Supreme Court narrowed their discussion purely to that one topic.
So is there anything on Win with JMC about this right now? All right, so let's transition to the government shutdown. A month into this thing now with no end in sight, apparently. You're starting to hear a lot about some of the benefit programs having their funding stopped, Snap Fitness, some of these other ones, which will create a ripple effect on the streets of America. What is your take on where this is right now, and do you think we're nearing an end at all?
Two words: Schumer shutdown. In other
words, that's the word people have been using, but, but okay, tell me why you think it's the Schumer shutdown.
And here's where I'm going to go from the word Schumer shutdown. When you're talking about a government shutdown, it's a case of who initiated it and who is stubbornly refusing to budge.
Okay.
And so in politics, one of the worst things to do is be in a position to where you have to explain your position. If you're Chuck Schumer, you have to explain why you want people to go without food stamps, why the military is possibly not being paid, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Whereas in the Republicans' case right now, I would argue they have a messaging victory, which is all they've got to say is, we very much want to reopen the government, and there's several moderate Democratic senators who are willing to go with us, but Chuck Schumer will not let the Democrats reopen the government. So in other words, it's so much easy in those few words to put the onus on the Democrats for the government shutting down than Chuck Schumer getting into some PhD dissertation and banging the podium. And plus, let me give you my opinion. This is getting into feels and not data, which is a very dangerous thing for someone in my profession to do, but I do it anyway. In my opinion, Chuck Schumer to me is coming across as A, overeager, and B, desperate. He's not giving off that air of being a leader. He's just more like, you know, I'm going to take my marbles and go home, and the Republicans are looking reasonable, unlike what happened in 1995's shutdown.
With Republicans calling this the Schumer shutdown and Democrats saying that they want to meet, but the president won't let the Republican caucus meet with them, what's your response to that? They're saying we can't open the government because they won't meet with us.
Those mean old Republicans.
Yeah. So then what do you do? Because you're going to have, because the people suffer.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, they're suffering over gamesmanship. And by the way, it's not just talking about military people getting paid and so forth. We're now getting into other things like, let's say, if you want to get a new flood insurance policy or things like that, that's where all of this can be heading, and it gets really messy. But my attitude is, if the Democrats were smart, what they would do is they would go to the podium and say, look, we very much want a functioning government. Here's why. Here's what we want. But instead, the Democrats, to me, are just stubbornly clinging on to, well, we're going to shut down the government because mean old Donald Trump, whatever, whatever. And that doesn't work.
The people are suffering, and that's the part they got to fix because they're still earning money up there. Win with JMC. Check him out online. Check him out on social media. Up next, let's check out a local restaurant here in town, and they brought a little grub with them. We'll introduce you to them next. The C-Suite, I referenced it earlier, features a conversation with Gordy Rush talking about Mama's Family. Oh, no, I'm sorry, I meant the LSU football program. Baton Rouge really is getting it done as it relates to places where you can go and get a great meal. I got one for you. Our Mom's Restaurant here in town. They've got another location in Hammond, and JP was telling me they're going to be opening another one in Prairieville. JP and Trent are ownership. My guy Patrick Foy here is hospitality consultant extraordinaire, helps stand up a lot of restaurants here in Baton Rouge. He also helped me put on the hosting festivities for the most recent Smoke 'em If You Got 'em. Our Mom's Restaurant. Elevator pitch me about it. Tell me about it.
Well, we started in 2011 in Hammond. That was our original location. And we had some great traction over there. So we came to our hometown, Baton Rouge, and right over there on Burbank, 250 Wesley Drive. We've had great success over there with it also. And, you know, we've kind of slowly adapted throughout the time and of different menu items and stuff. So we brought a few of them here for you today.
Yeah, so what do you have here?
We have the Good Morning Burger right here. With a fried egg on it. We have our peanut butter and jelly burger right here. Little different, but
so
something to try.
Chuck told me about that. He loves it. He swears by. Where's Henry at? Henry, are you around here somewhere? I got.
We need a taste test.
We need. So so I was in there maybe 3 weeks ago, JP, and I like the vibe. A lot of families in there. A lot of grandparents with grandkids in there. You guys have cultivated a family environment in the restaurant. Tell me how you accomplished that.
I mean, with a name like Our Moms, come on, man. You know, if we were anything other than that, I feel like we would kind of just be a bunch of posers. But we've always focused on the hospitality side of things and how we treat people. I tell people all the time, like, the food should be good, right? Like, when you eat, it's going to be amazing.
You kind of want it to be good, right?
No, it's going to be good.
Yeah.
I already know that, right? But I want you to leave happy. And leaving happy means, did I take care of you? Did my staff take care of you? Right? Did I make your day just a little bit better, a little bit brighter?
I love that. And Pat, you've been around the restaurant industry here for a very long time, touched a lot of places. We were talking before the segment began. We're kind of hitting our groove here in the capital region, right?
And it's becoming more of a team effort in terms of all the restaurants in Baton Rouge. It's not so much, it's more divide and conquer, but it's not against each other. So it's kind of gotten a more communal feel lately, especially between LRA and Epicurean.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of good.
What's your take on what these guys are doing at their restaurant?
Well, they're very big into the family
that's
aspect
good.
of what we're doing. So that's what attracted me to it. Is they mean what they say when they say our moms. They're
Yeah.
trying to create a hospitable environment for everybody coming to the door, whether it be the staff or the guests.
What was it before? Did you guys bought it and you changed the name of it?
No, it was always us. We
Always the
started
question.
Yeah, we started from the ground up. Like we took it from nothing, from a concept to what it is now. But we started off as your moms.
Okay. That's what it was.
It was still us, and then when we changed it to our moms, still us. No,
Yeah.
no investors, no partners or anything. Just not from the very beginning. But we started off more as a college bar before,
Yeah.
and everyone grows up, right?
Well, so what's the favorite thing people order when they come in? The thing that you know that most people, when they come to our moms, they're thinking about, I want to get that if I'm here.
The burgers for sure, I would say,
Yes.
is like our #1 go-to. But I'll tell you, our salads have grown tremendously. With like people that I'll see in the restaurant as we're walking through, talking to some tables, and they're like, "We come here every week for the salad." And I'm like, "Man, a salad?" I was like,
Like constantly win best burger.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, but you're here for the salad. Thank you.
Oh, don't worry. You got some folks in master control who are chomping at the bit to
Yeah.
get into the burgers. Alyssa's ready to get the to come out here now to get at it. All right, so I want people to, again, tell people where you guys are. 'Cause look, I've been there myself. I don't bring people on here and vouch, look at that photo, and vouch for anything that's not good. They're great. I got 20 seconds. Tell people about why they should come to our moms.
Oh, I thought you were going to tell
Yeah.
them why to come to our mom.
Well, I mean, if you give me ownership of it, I'll do it. Quickly, what makes you special?
What makes us special is we use quality ingredients. We care about the people first and foremost. We care about our staff.
Yeah.
And if you care about your staff will take care of the people. And if you take care of the people, they'll come back. If they come back, you'll be successful. And if you're successful, you can give back to community. Boom.
Couldn't have said
Great
it better
line.
myself.
I was like, did I nail it?
If we had a mic, we'd drop it right now. You guys have a great weekend. See you next week.